Hi.
Thank you for meeting with me.
Thank you.
Again, we talk all the time, so it's no big deal, but it's fun to be like doing it more officially.
Yeah.
Stacey, you are the founder of Zip Code Creative. I love talking to founders
Yeah.
because I don't just the ownership and you've created this living, breathing thing and you're helping so many people and it's brave as hell to be a founder.
Oh, thanks.
Tell us a little bit about Zip Code and your company.
Yeah, well, it's my baby. So we are a branding agency for multifamily, as you know. We offer services starting from helping name communities through to designing their logo, their full visual identity, their brand messaging and voice. And then we also offer a la carte graphic design and copywriting services.
We are currently at a conference. And your booth is one of my favorite ones.
Oh, thanks.
It is so aesthetic. The branding is so on point.
Well, hey, we're yellow in a sea of blue out there. So I think we're drawing some eyeballs.
You are. You're like a golden mustard, like a marigold. No. Yeah, like a marigold sunflower yellow. Yes.
My favorite color.
I love it. It's beautiful. I love your book that you have. You've got like full on like marketing book. I'm definitely taking one.
Okay,
it has
absolutely.
like tons of resources in there. It's really cool. And also, of course, your work. So Stacey, tell me about like who is the perfect customer for Zip Code?
Oh, that's a good question. So we typically work with small to mid-sized property management companies with their marketing teams, usually operators who have maybe one or a small marketing team that's outsourcing for branding and graphic design. And sometimes companies may have an in-house graphic designer, but they're kind of more production focused. They have so much on their plate. So maybe it's like branding or the larger overhaul of brand development goes outsourced, or specialty items like floor plans, site maps, renderings. So we just kind of come in as a support role where they need it.
We talk a lot, obviously, about like the story behind a building. I mean, these are multi-million-dollar investments. You invest so much money in materials and labor and everything. You have a whole staff, and they're not like, you're not building a little coffee shop. It's a big deal. And yet we see smaller companies invest so much in branding and with building, you're like, oh, I just put up a building and people will move in, and they won't. Like it is so competitive. There's so much supply, especially if you're in luxury. Like there's not a lot of people that can pay the prices. So what does the impact of a story and a brand have on the value of a building?
Yeah, totally. Because it's no longer build it and they will come. There just is too much competition. And the reality is they're finding those properties before they're ever actually physically going to the place. So you have to capture them early. And in this generation we're in, brand, they see it within seconds. They've either moved on or clicked in to see more on the digital space. So you have to catch them early. But yes, I mean, story is everything. Like if you can differentiate, there's so much competition. They're all similar amenity packages, similar finishes. Everyone wants, the wood look flooring and the marble quartz looking countertops. So we all kind of have a similar product. So how are we differentiating? And a lot of that comes down to brand visuals, but brand messaging more so. How are you telling that story? And I think for us, what we often look at is location very heavily. Is there a story to tell there, a history or anything like that? That's just one example of how we tell story.
So when you are telling your own business's story, how are you getting your message? And so a lot of marketers are listening to us, and marketers are gonna be like, yeah, brand, obviously, like your story is so important. But there's a lot more decision makers in the room besides just a marketer who understands the value of brand. There's finance people, there's developers that you probably work with a lot. How do you get your message of like why brand matters that maybe it's not top of mind,
Well, I think that's a challenge that we face daily. Many times it is, the owner of the building who's ultimately paying the bill. The marketers are saying, hey, we need to do this. And maybe they really understand brand, but maybe an owner is just seeing like, well, yeah, we just need a logo, right? That's all we need. And so I think it's always being out there to provide that value and kind of educate. So that's a big part of what I do. You'll probably see me on LinkedIn talking about
I sure do.
this stuff. So, I think helping the marketers have the right tools to help their owners and anyone else who is that decision maker understand the value of brand and why they should be doing it, and really let's talk about that. Why is that? Because it sets them apart from the competition and gets those clicks and gets those appointments scheduled, right?
Yeah,
Earlier
absolutely.
on.
And if you're a marketer or just like in multifamily in general, people should definitely follow you because you are a prolific content creator. You guys are writing free resources, completely free all the time. Like I subscribe to your newsletter. I see all your posts on Revise and LinkedIn, and it's just like constant free advice. First of all, that's very helpful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What tools would you give to maybe a marketer who wants to go into a leadership meeting and advocate for hiring a creative agency? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think again is like they need to understand what all is brand. I think there's a misconception right from the start that it is just a logo or some colors, and it's
not.
just so much more than that. And so, equipping them with that in-depth knowledge. I mean, we love to provide examples to our clients, so we know it doesn't always end with the marketing person who we're usually the one in communication with. So if they can take that, I mean, we try to provide as much statistics as we can. As you know, I think we both know, and we've talked before, you and I, but brand can be hard to track to see, what ROI is really coming because you had a better logo. But there's statistics on the front end that say how, especially the Gen Z generation, they see a brand and they judge it within milliseconds.
Yeah.
So that is an important thing to realize. And also, does it have brand consistency? Can they understand who you are before they decide to really look into if they want to live there?
We talk a lot about data in the world, and it's easy to talk about data, and it's easy to get lost in the data.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with data. Data is incredibly important. But there are different things to consider when you do marketing. And I think qualitative data, do not forget about qualitative data. Mm-hmm. Quantitative data is important. But I had an experience where I had a property in Portland, and the brand was very thoughtful. Okay. The photos were very lifestyle. I hired my favorite photographer who's like does weddings and editorial stuff. And it was so specific, and it was very tailored. Like, it was very feminine. It wasn't trying to like appeal to everyone. It was like, it had a persona behind it. And I was working with this woman who moved into the building. She was a micro influencer. She had 15,000 followers. And I was working with her to promote the building. And I was getting coffee with her, and I was like, why did you move here? Like, I was curious. She's like, it was the brand. She's like, this building, I looked at 5 buildings on the street, and they were literally all the same. Yeah. But the vibe and the aesthetic of your Instagram and your website, it was all consistent. When I got to the property, it was there too. And I saw myself in that building based on the curation of images and words and story. And we literally had the exact same product as the one across the street. And
that's the difference.
It is. And that is a qualitative data point that could get lost if you're like, well, we got everyone from Google search or like whatever. You're looking at your Google Analytics. Where did they come from? Like, where's my attribution coming from? You can't track feelings with technology.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unless you're giving them some in-depth survey that's asking specific questions.
Yeah, but they don't want to answer that anyway.
No.
So
right. Yeah. Exactly.
I think it's really valuable. And I think there's a lot of, it doesn't seem like as hard of a fight as it used to be, like as a marketer, like advocating for a real brand for development. I think people are definitely on the right page.
More open to it.
So tell me about how you're going to, in this next year, really get your brand more exposure in this industry. How are you connecting with your customers?
Yeah, well, we try to connect as relationally as we can because sales feels cringy to me.
Yeah.
And I don't
Fellow marketer. Yes, I know, me too.
So that's what we do. I mean, we don't have a formal like sales team or anything like that. Like, I'm the founder. I get out there. Like you said, I try to provide free value as much as I can and just be friendly and be a welcoming face. And so we show up at events like the one we're at today as much as we can with our humble budget because we are small. We are a boutique creative agency, and I'm proud of it. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it's better because we can give more attention to our customers and more in-depth work.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're here. We just, do our humble organic growth, really.
You know that like 80-20 rule,
Yeah.
about be helpful 80% of the time,
Yeah.
talk about yourself 20% of the time. I feel like you do 90-10.
I know. I think I could be better about talking.
I think you should talk more about yourself. You should brag.
So hard. I'm like,
Humble
no,
brag a little bit more.
I don't want the eyes on me.
Well, I think what you're doing is great. I'm a fan, and you always like one of your taglines, like we make things pretty, and you truly do.
We do the
And
fun stuff. We're
you
very
do.
lucky.
You do. You've definitely built a career and life for yourself based on what you love, and it shows. It's really cool to be a part of. But is there any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with in podcast land?
Just come see who we are and, be open to a conversation about branding.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Stacey.
Thank you.